Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. In today's one, we are going to be going over the Storm Prediction Center Day 1, Day 2, and Day 3 outlook. As you can see right here, a slight risk of severe thunderstorms is forecast today or tonight, and you can see right here, this is the Day 1 outlook. First things first, we have a slight risk of severe weather from western New York and, the Niagara Falls border, almost all the way up through upstate New York into central and southern New Hampshire or central and southern Vermont into a very small sliver of New Hampshire. We also have another slight risk in Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, extreme western Kentucky, and extreme southwestern Illinois. So, and we have a marginal risk connecting the two slight risks. We also have another marginal risk that extends from the Mexico border all the way up through central Texas and western Texas. We also have an enhanced risk of severe weather tomorrow and a slight risk of severe weather on Saturday. Luckily, there's nothing delineated on days Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, so luckily there's no severe weather as of lately. That may be about to change, however, as I read the description, and it did paint a very conducive picture regarding severe weather, so we'll see how everything goes. Alrighty, so first things first, we have today's outlook, the 1630Z outlook. 1630 UTC. Um, there's a 5% risk of tornadoes. The tornado outlook says that we have a 5% risk of tornadoes from in upstate New York and a 2% risk of tornadoes from the near the Niagara Falls, United States-Canada border, all the way up through upstate New York into south central Vermont and extreme western New Hampshire. We also have a 2% risk of tornadoes in Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Tennessee, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi. So Syracuse, Utica, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. Rome, Auburn, and Oswego, New York are under the 5% risk of tornadoes, and Memphis, Tennessee, Rochester, New York, Little Rock, Arkansas, Jackson, Tennessee, and Schenectady, New York are also under severe weather, specifically tornado risks. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully that we do not get a ton of tornadoes up in upstate New York because there's a 5% chance. But the chance, unfortunately, is never zero. So, anyways, this is the wind risk now. Wind risk, we have it's basically like the slight risk. The slight risk is perpetuated by the wind and the hail potential. So it's essentially the same for both. It's a 15% delineation from near the US-Canada border all the way up through uh, upstate New York, south central Vermont, and extreme western New Hampshire. You're gonna get annoyed with me saying that, but I will stop saying it soon. And then we also have a 15% risk of wind from Arkansas to Missouri to Illinois to Kentucky to Tennessee. And again, we have a 5% risk, which is that marginal risk connecting those two. It goes all the way from the New Hampshire-Maine border all the way through the Adirondacks, the Mid-Atlantic and North and New England regions into Detroit as well, and also includes, technically can include Canada. It's just that the Storm Prediction Center is mainly United States territories, not Canadian territories, so this technically includes parts of Canada as well, into the into the Appalachians, into the Mid-South, and then obviously we have that little 5% risk of that little marginal risk that we saw earlier stemming from the Mexico border through southwestern, western, and central Texas. Then the hail risk kind of remains the same. For here, nothing really changes. Um, and then, obviously it goes down and down and down through the through New England, the Mid-Atlantic, the Appalachians. But here we have a conditional intensity group 1. That's SIG 1. That is a stippling, a hatched risk, and the hatched risk goes from Tennessee to Kentucky to Illinois to Missouri to Arkansas to even a little bit of Oklahoma and Mississippi as well. So yes, so the if hail does spawn, which hail is likely to spawn due to the 15% risk of weather, uh, hail can potentially be severe and maybe a little bit significant as well. And then over here, the marginal risk is also perpetuated by a 5% hatched risk of hail, which means that any thunderstorms that do spawn in this corridor specifically do have the potential to be significant. So again, we have a big tornado risk in New York. Stupid Discord's opening up because I'm accidentally clicking on the notifications. There's an elevated 5% tornado risk in New York, also an elevated tornado risk in the Mid-South. Going to wind, we have a double elevated wind risk from the Adirondacks and the Catskills or whatever up north, all the way to the Mid-South, and another potentially dangerous hail risk in the Mid-South, and a non-dangerous, non-lethal hail threat in the north. At least that's what's prognosticated. But obviously, things that are prognosticated can't always come true. Anyway, so summary. Let's read the description. Summary. Scattered severe thunderstorms are possible this afternoon over New York into southern Vermont, with damaging wind gusts and perhaps a tornado or two are the primary threats. A large to very large hail is possible with stronger thunderstorms over the northern half of Arkansas. Ozarks Plateau into the Mid-South. Recent visible satellite imagery shows some ACCAS. I have no idea what that means. I'm going to look it up as soon as we... Altocumulus castanelis. Wonderful. So, recent visible satellite imagery shows some altocumulus castanelis across south-central Missouri, indicative of low to mid-level warm advection amid the steep lapse rates environment in place. These steep lapse rates are forecast to continue to spread eastward, while low-level moisture advection brings low 60s dew points northeastward into the region as well. This will result in a moderate to strongly buoyant air mass, i.e., mixed layer convective available potential energy from 1500 to 2000 joules per kilogram by the early afternoon. Additionally, moderate mid to high level flow will remain in place, resulting in long photographs and overall environmental conditions that are very favorable for supercells capable of large to very large hail. Latest guidance continues the earlier trends of developing thunderstorms in this area, which match observational expectations as well. Large to very large hail, 1 to 3 inches in diameter, is possible with any updrafts that mature into supercells. Low-level flow is weak, keeping tornado probability low but not zero. Given the modest pocket of mid-level dry air present, supercells will likely become outflow dominant with time, supporting the potential for damaging wind gusts across the region, particular eastern areas as well. And that is from the Ozark Plateau into the Mid-South. Now here we go. New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire southeastward into the Central Appalachians. Recent surface analysis places a low over the eastern Ontario and southern Quebec border vicinity, with modest surface troughing extending southeastward from this low across central lower Michigan. Air mass across much of New York is characterized by dew points in the low 60s. Dew points should stay in the low 60s throughout the day, despite modest mixing and diurnal heating. This should result in air mass destabilization ahead of the modest surface trough, with a general increase in large-scale ascent beginning during the afternoon as well. Little to no convective inhibition is anticipated, supporting the potential for more cellular development over the warm sector initially, before a more expansive convective line develops along the eastward progressing surface trough. Ample mid to high level flow will favor storm organization, including a risk for large hail and a tornado with the more intense discrete supercells. The wind risk will tend to focus with linear structures that evolve over time. An isolated threat for wind damage and perhaps hail will extend southward into Pennsylvania and West Virginia and the Cumberland Plateau, where a few stronger storms may yield those hazards. All right, and then the Edwards Plateau into the Texas Big Country and western North Texas. A strongly buoyant and weakly capped air mass is expected to develop along the dry line extending southwestward from western Oklahoma through the Edwards Plateau. Although neutral to weak shortwave ridging is expected throughout much of the morning into the late afternoon, some limited ascent, associated with a weak shortwave trough moving out of northern Mexico, may begin to spread across the dry line by early evening. This, combined with dryline circulations, may be enough to initiate isolated to widely scattered thunderstorms. Low-level flow will be weak, but moderate to strong westerly flow aloft will result in wind profiles very favorable for supercells capable of large to very large hail. Any thunderstorms that do develop should weaken quickly with the onset of nocturnal cooling. Alrighty, so again, there's an elevated risk in New York, especially the wind. There's a wind risk from New York all the way down, stretching into the mid-south and the Edwards Plateau into the Texas Big Hill Country, and then again, hail risk that gets progressively worse as you get farther southwest. So if you're starting in New Hampshire, let's say, and you travel and you look southwest, the hail intensity will get worse and worse and worse and more severe, evident by the stippling over over these two areas. This one over here and this one over here. Anyway, so the day 2 outlook. This is Friday's outlook. This is today's outlook. Now, severe thunderstorms are already initiating in the southern part of the risk, but I still covered it just because. The tomorrow's outlook, day 2. This is very concerning. I got the update, and I'm very concerned. The reason why I'm concerned is not only what I'm going to show you, what's delineated, but also that the Storm Prediction Center put a essentially short but sweet response. Sometimes that's good, but also sometimes that's not. They kind of went a short but sweet route. They, what do you call it? They didn't really put a whole lot of information in there. I mean, I really don't think that this is a lot of information. I may be wrong, however, I probably am just like it's perspective probably because the paragraphs are kind of broken up. So yeah, wonderful. So cool. Anyway, let's get into it. So there's an enhanced risk that extends from central Wisconsin all the way down into Iowa, the southeastern part of Minnesota, extreme southeast Minnesota, into western Illinois, into eastern Iowa, into central and northern Missouri, into eastern Kansas, into northern Oklahoma. Uh, there's a slight risk extending from the upper peninsula of Michigan all the way down into the lower peninsula of Michigan, uh, into Wisconsin, into southeast Minnesota, central Iowa, central Illinois, and eastern Illinois, northeast Illinois, including Chicago, uh, south central and central, well, more south central Missouri, uh, central-ish Kansas, uh, in even into Indiana as well, and northwest Arkansas into Oklahoma, central eastern Oklahoma, really more south central and eastern Oklahoma, and into parts of Texas. And then the marginal risk extends from the Great Lakes region, literally the Great Lakes, all the way down to the Mexico border. This is the part that concerns me, the tornado threat. So, remember how I said just a couple of days ago that there is a hatched risk of tornadoes, a hatched risk system? Yeah, a couple of days ago, I think it was my last video, I said that there is a double hatched risk of tornadoes, SIG 2. That's gonna happen again. Yes, that's gonna happen again. Wild, absolutely wild, 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 wild. The Storm Prediction Center thinks that thermodynamics are very favorable for intermittent strong tornadoes. They're definitely Oh, I shouldn't say definitely, but they're probably not going to upgrade to a moderate only because of how short-lived these potential supercells are, plus the conditional risk of how and when supercells spawn. I mean, sometimes supercells they spawn in not sometimes. Supercells do spawn in something known as quasi-linear convective systems. It's just a system of convection that's kind of linear, but also kind of not. It's almost linear, quasi meaning almost perfect or almost. So it's an almost perfect linear convective system. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, the 2% tornado risk extends from the Great Lakes to the Mexico border. There's a 5% risk of tornadoes extending from the Wisconsin, UP of Michigan, uh, the Wisconsin UP of Michigan border, all the way down through southeast Minnesota into central and southern Iowa, into western Illinois, into uh, central and northern Missouri, into central and eastern Kansas, into Oklahoma, and even into portions of the extreme sliver of northwest Arkansas and a portion of Texas. And there's a 10% risk of tornadoes extending from uh, central Wisconsin down through southeast Minnesota into eastern Iowa into extreme portions of northwest Illinois. And here is the double hatched risk. The double hatched risk also extends from south central Wisconsin into extreme portions of western Illinois, into eastern Iowa, into very small portion of southeast Minnesota. The hatched risk, single hatched risk, extends from uh, let's see, extends from just shy of the Wisconsin-Michigan border all the way down into Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma City is in the 5% hatched risk, so as Kansas City, so as Des Moines and Cedar Rapids and Belvidere, Illinois, and all those places. So there is definitely going to be, I did not mean to click that, there is definitely going to be a risk of very strong tornadoes, potentially over EF3. Now, I really don't know how reasonable that expectation is because I have looked at the convective allowing models and they've really just shown like just a line. Now, granted, yes, anything can happen in a line. A line is not going to be perfect and random mesoscale vortices can spin up something and then a supercell can spawn and then a long track tornado can dig into the ground. I'm just it just doesn't look that discreet to me. It just really looks like a very simple cold front setup that kind of is how it looks to me. Just a very, very simple cold front setup. So, yippee. Anyway, so the wind risk now. The wind risk is pretty high. So again, 5% risk of wind. This is, if you know the shape of the marginal and the shape of the enhanced or whatever, you'll know that some things perpetuate the marginals or the slice or the enhanced. There's a 5% wind risk, from the Great Lakes to the Mexico border. There's a 15% risk from the UP of Michigan down to the LP of Michigan into Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, southeast Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. There's a 30% risk of wind from central Wisconsin into Minnesota, into Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. And then here we go. We have like a new Pokemon here. There's a 45% hatched risk of wind, single hatched, from Iowa to Missouri to Kansas. Uh, Now, what that's entailing is that there is going to be a potentially significant amount of wind damage over here from portions of southern Iowa to northern and potentially northern and west central Missouri, and east central Kansas. I believe Kansas City is in that. Yes, Kansas City is in the 45% hatched risk of wind. Uh, and the hatched risk extends from like south central Wisconsin into Iowa, Illinois, blah 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 blah, Missouri, and Kansas. So the most intense part of the line that favors tornadoes is in the northern part, from Wisconsin to Iowa to Illinois to Minnesota, specifically portions of southwest Wisconsin, east Iowa, and northwest Illinois. And then the wind risk is favored farther south, from southeastern and south central Iowa into north central and west central Missouri, and into east central Kansas. And then the hail risk is kind of just a bimodal thing. The 5% hatched risk, 5% risk of hail, excuse me, not hatched risk, extends from the Great Lakes to the Mexico border. A 15% risk goes from the UP of Michigan to Wisconsin to Minnesota to Iowa to Illinois to Missouri to Nebraska to Kansas to Arkansas to Oklahoma and to Texas. And then there are two 30% hatched risks of severe weather that are not connected as of lately, but I think they may connect. They may mitosize into one. Or I should say combine. Mitosize is. Never mind. So there's one risk, the northern risk of hail. It extends from central, kind of north central Wisconsin into Minnesota, into Iowa, into Illinois. Not a problem. The other one extends from uh, western Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas into Oklahoma, and then that's really it for the hail risk. Apart from the fact that it's hatched, meaning that there is a potential that it could be severe hail. Severe hail, wonderful. Not wonderful. But I mean, I've looked at the convective allowing models and they've blown this thing up. Like thunderstorms, boom, 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 boom. They get to firing. They get to have a party basically with all the instability. Oh Lord, it's terrible. Now, let's read the description because there really is nothing else I can say about this apart from the fact that places like La Crosse, Des Moines, Hannibal, Kansas City, Wichita are in this enhanced risk. Also, Madison and Overland Park are in this risk, the enhanced risk specifically. So, there's an enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms extending from Wisconsin southwestward into Oklahoma. Alrighty, here we go. Summary: widespread severe thunderstorms are expected from parts of the southern plains to the middle and upper Mississippi Valley vicinity Friday into Friday night. Tornadoes, possibly strong, very large hail, and swaths of damaging winds will be possible. Synopsis: an upper trough will move into the central and northern plains during the day, strengthening through Friday night as it moves into the upper Mississippi Valley. Continuous height falls will occur across the entire central to northern plains region, where mid and upper level temperatures will already be relatively cool. During the afternoon, low pressure will develop across Iowa and Wisconsin, with a cold front extending southwestward into southern Kansas and northwest Oklahoma. A warm front will also lift across Iowa and into Wisconsin during the day, with an influx of mid-60s dew points. Given the cool temperatures aloft, this will create a highly unstable air mass ahead of the cold front. This front will accelerate during the evening as thunderstorms become numerous, keyword is numerous, and should extend roughly from lower Michigan into central Texas by 12Z Saturday. That's 7 a.m. Central Daylight Time. The combination of steep lapse rates aloft, ample shear, and ample moisture will support corridors of significant severe thunderstorms, including all modes of severe weather. Alright, from Iowa into Wisconsin and northwest Illinois. Strong tornado potential is evident Friday afternoon into early evening, especially from Iowa into southern Wisconsin and northwest Illinois. While convective evolution is a bit uncertain, there is good agreement in a very unstable environment. with mid-level lapse rates to around 8.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer, along with 200 to 300 meters squared per second squared of effective storm relative helicity ahead of the surface low and near the warm front. While an eventual squall line may take shape late in the day, scattered supercells appear likely after about 19Z, which is at 3 p.m. Central, uh, ahead of the developing low and as dew points rise rapidly. As such, conditional tornado probabilities have been increased further to indicate stronger tornado potential. Actually, that's 2 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I apologize. So, as such, conditional tornado probabilities have been increased further to indicate stronger tornado potential. So, these two sentences right here, uh, not good. Not good. Not good. Yes, a squall line will likely develop. While an eventual squall line may take shape, yes, that will happen. Scattered supercells will appear very likely about 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, uh, and as instability builds and builds and builds, supercells will explode. And, and conditional tornado probabilities were tweaked upwards in order to account for this risk. Cells should eventually consolidate as the front pushes east, with damaging bowing structures expected possibly as far east as Lake Michigan. The severe risk is expected to persist as far east as Indiana and lower Michigan late evening into the overnight as the southerly low-level jet brings moisture northward, and damaging winds appear possible. Okay, so Oklahoma into Kansas into Missouri. A volatile environment will develop near and ahead of the cold front Friday afternoon, with significant severe hail, wind, and several tornadoes expected. An impressive combination of deep layer shear and wind fields and steep lapse rates aloft will exist. And while the forcing mechanism will be linear, shear vector orientation and likely rightward propagation of the stronger supercells will support tornadoes and very large damaging hail initially. Keyword is initially. All this activity is expected to merge into a linear mesoscale convective system with corridors of destructive winds and continued large hail expected over much of Missouri and into northern Oklahoma through the evening. So there really isn't much to say about this risk again, besides please be extremely vigilant of tomorrow. Tomorrow, there is a 10% double hatched risk of tornadoes. Keyword is double. Double hatched. Meaning that tornadoes could potentially be over EF3. EF3 or greater. That EF3s are killer tornadoes. Alright. They are not too violent, but not too weak. They're directly in the middle. They're very elusive, very cunning individuals. So please, 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 for the love of all that is holy, be prepared for tomorrow's severe weather event. Have multiple ways to receive weather watches in the mornings. Contact immediate family if you know where they live and you know that they were placed under some sort of tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning. Know what to do when a tornado warning comes through and know what to do in case of an emergency. Please stay calm and remain vigilant when severe weather goes on, because the worst thing to do is panic. Because when you panic, you lose all self-awareness and self-consciousness and like self self I forgot that word. You lose all sense of awareness and you know logic. Logic. You lose all sense of self-logic. So please do not panic. I know it's kind of the main thing to do when you are under a pressing severe weather risk like this is just to panic. Please don't panic because you need to make logical decisions and understand what you're going to do, how you're going to traverse your certain environments, and many more. So please be safe out there if you live from central Wisconsin into northern Oklahoma and, points connecting those two. Uh, and then severe weather continues into the mid-Atlantic and Ohio Valley vicinity. There's a slight risk from western Pennsylvania into central and southern Ohio, into western West Virginia, into northeast Kentucky, and into a very small sliver of Indiana. And then a marginal risk extending from Niagara Falls into Lake Ontario, from Lake Ontario to Niagara Falls to western New York, into central-ish Pennsylvania, into northern Ohio, including Cleveland, into southeast Indiana, into north central, uh, east central, north central, northeast Kentucky, into southern-ish West Virginia, and that's really it. And yeah, let's read the description of this. There's not much to say here. Summary: Scattered strong to severe thunderstorms capable of damaging winds and hail will be possible on Saturday from the upper Ohio Valley. Synopsis: An upper trough will move towards the upper Great Lakes and Ohio Valley on Saturday, with a cold front moving quickly east and extending from western New York into Pennsylvania, into Kentucky and Tennessee by 0Z, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. A narrow plume of upper 50s dew points to near 60 will exist and contribute to up to 1,000 joules per kilogram of most unstable convective available potential energy. May not seem like a lot to you, but it is just enough to get thunderstorms to develop. Storms will likely be ongoing early in the day along the front as it moves out of Indiana and into western Ohio and Kentucky, and 40 to 50 knot southwest winds at 850 millibars may support damaging gust potential. Heating ahead of the front from Ohio and Pennsylvania southward into West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee may support new development, although lapse rates aloft over southern areas will be poor. Still, favorable deep layer mean wind speeds and sufficient shear may support isolated severe gusts or marginal hail, especially into Ohio and western Pennsylvania. Further, low-level shear will be strongest over northern areas with some supercell potential. So supercells are just rotating thunderstorms, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a 2% tornado risk delineated tomorrow morning. So you don't have to be as vigilant if you live in this slight risk on Saturday as you do if you live in this enhanced risk tomorrow on Friday, because the severe weather will be more subdued as the thermodynamics won't be as rich and as ripe for rupture. Uh, so, I mean, yes, you still have to be vigilant, or at least still should be, but you don't need to take as many precautions, and you don't need to be as strict with your planning and whatever. Now, I'm going to go back to the home page. Notice how there's no severe weather delineated for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. That's good. And I'm not going to talk about the days 4 through 8 outlook because there really is nothing to talk about. There's nothing that's delineated as of lately, and I'm just going to give you a summary of what I read. What I read basically was that on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, severe weather will be subdued due to the cold front coming through and causing a cold snap throughout the United States, essentially. So the cold front will be coming through, lowering temperatures and hindering the risk for severe weather. And then by Wednesday into Thursday, another trough will come into the western United States. However, due to it being so far out in time, 168 hours out basically, models are very uncertain and are very wishy-washy, so they don't know where to place severe weather. Uh, they don't know where to place severe weather parameters, and the Storm Prediction Center can't really extrapolate any details because every story painted by the models is so different. So there is nothing to be delineated on the days 4 through 8 outlook. However, I will definitely give y'all details when I can and when they are available. So I really don't have anything else to talk about. Please be prepared for severe weather this afternoon and into this evening. Please also be extremely prepared for potentially significant severe weather tomorrow significant tornadoes, probably at or above EF3, according to what's being delineated. Major wind damage and major hail as well. And then on Friday, if you live in the Ohio Valley, please just be prepared for severe weather. Saturday, sorry, not Friday, Saturday. Friday will be from the Great Lakes region down into the Midwest and Southern Plains, and Saturday's risk will be in just the Ohio Valley. And then there's nothing Sunday through Wednesday, or Sunday through Thursday, excuse me, of next week. So please, just do whatever you can to be prepared for the next couple of days. But then we will be smooth sailing for 3 days, hopefully, and then maybe severe weather may ramp up. So that is it, everyone. Have a lovely day.